Nancy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and get in front of the platform that I have the privilege of working with. I'd love to start out with just some basics. So for those of us that maybe we only see you on the board meeting live streams, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and why you've decided to run for re-election this year.
Okay. Well, thank you, Oscar. I really appreciate you doing this. Uh, Nancy Morrison. Nancy Morrison has been a member of this district since 1975. Understand I started out in teaching. I taught in Humble, became an administrator in Humble, and of course, retired from Humble as an elementary principal. So I have some, if you count the 8 years that I've worked on the school board, I've had somewhere around 47 years experience in education. I've always loved education. It's what I always wanted to do. So therefore, needless to say, that's my background. My family, my husband and I moved here, and we have a daughter and a son, and they grew up in Humble, and they both graduated from Humble High School. So it is near and dear to me. Now, you want to know why I am running again? Well, I have 8 years. I want to put 4 more years in. I believe that once you get, your first 4 years you're on the board, it's like you're adapting, you're learning. It is such a large learning curve that, okay. And then the second 4 years you're going, wow, I really understand what my purpose is, what my job is. And so you really want to put a few more years in. And I also, I have a great buy-in to the 22 bond. I also have a buy-in to, since we have a lot of issues that are coming out from COVID, and I have a near and dear heartthrob of learning, Dr. Fagan and her crew are trying to get a wellness school approved through the state of Texas. It is near and dear to my heart, knowing that we have a lot of little ones now. We have a lot of little ones that have some mental health issues that we need to get the right support to them, which also entails, when we talk a little bit further along, is staff is near and dear to my heart. Teachers are. And I do believe that if we are not careful, we will have a teacher shortage. We've got to support our teachers, and teacher retention is very important to me. So those are the issues. I love the kids, I love the staff, and I love this community. And that's the reason why I'm running again.
All right, so thank you for that. Let's dive right into a few topics here. Let's start
Okay.
off with school safety. We
Okay.
hear about this a lot. We hear it from parents, and so I'd love to get your thoughts in 2 areas. One, I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe internal safety issues, so bullying, fighting in schools. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and then we'll kind of dive into the external side. So on the bullying, the fighting, how do you
Okay.
feel we're doing as a district right now? Is there improvement to be made? And if so, what does that look like?
We definitely have improvement to be made. Now, understand too that I'll relate part of that back to what has come out of COVID too. One, we have to have the support. We have to have the counseling support. Now, we have counselors in every building, okay? And understand there's behavior issues that we're all working with. Have we come? We've grown, but we've got a ways to go. I'll be honest with you. But we do need the support that have the specific skill sets to work with those issues. Now, generally speaking, we've grown from, okay, is it teasing? Is it bullying? Is it what? Social media has brought on a freedom to be mean, I think, sometimes. I really do. And I do think we have to watch, and we have to be very careful, and we have to be very cognizant of how kids use technology, because it does open up that door. And so we're doing better. We have programs in place. No Place for Hate. We have a lot of different programs out there now, but we still have room to grow. And that's one of the reasons why I think too, that if we were given the right support, that needless to say, that we could help in that area. And that's why I think I think the wellness school would be one tool, needless to say, to help work with these students that have become bullies and have and are victims too. I mean, there's a lot to be said about about mental health issues for small children. Yes, I do think that we've got a ways to go, but I think we're improving. Each year we get better, but do we have a lot to learn about it? Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of that external side, right? Parents talk about this all the time. We see it in the news, unfortunately, even in the last month or so. So tell us a little bit about, and I know you can't tell us all the things for
Can't tell
safety
you
and all
everything
that.
that's done, but I can sure tell you some.
Yes. So let's talk about how you feel we're doing right now to keep the students and staff safe. Is there again improvement to be made, and if so, what does that look like? What are you proud of, and where do we need to go from here?
Okay. Number one, I'm going to tell you what, I'm very proud of our police force. We are like number 4 in the area, okay, in the state. Nationally, we're number 7 of being the safest school district. Okay. Now that comes from that all our officers are trained from the National Alert Active Shooter Training. Okay. And I don't know that everybody knows that. But the bottom line is they are trained and they get continuous training every month, every week. They are training. Okay. Now, let's talk about buildings. Okay. Let's go back for just a minute because I'll bounce back and forth because I really love this subject. Our police officers we've gone through 2 active shooting trainings. Okay. One at AHS, even with the reunification. Okay. So we pulled all the police officers in the sense of, and all the area, like the Humble Police Department, Harris County Sheriffs, Harris County Constables, Houston Police. We have pulled them all together. And several years ago, well, actually, it's been a few more years ago, we did Atascocita High School first. And we did a reunification. Now, the students weren't involved in it, but we ran through the whole process of, even to the point of taking vehicles out to the reunification and finding out what our weaknesses were. Now, I can tell you that, okay, a lot of things were changed after that. Now, specifically, I would tell you, okay, there are a few things like, if you notice, you'll see driveways numbered. Doorways are numbered. Okay. We built the porticos in the front of the buildings. So every building has a closed off situation where you can't get in unless you're buzzed in. Okay. Now, those are all obvious. Okay. Now, I know that parents were sent email information about ballistic shields. We have those. We have those in the buildings with teachers that wanted to participate. And there will be more of those. I will tell you that. Now, there's a lot of things inside. Can't tell you where all the cameras are, but we got a whole bunch of them. Okay. Exterior. Can't tell you where they're all at, but I can tell you the buildings are covered. Okay. Now let's talk about response time. Okay. First of all, we have officers on all the high school campuses. We have officers on all the middle school campuses. We don't have them on the elementaries, but now let's talk about response time. I have visited with Chief Cook at the very worst point, and it would be caused of construction, traffic, or some such. The very worst would be a 5-minute response time. Their average response time right now to an elementary from a middle school or a high school would be 1 to 3 minutes to an elementary. We are adding officers as soon as and as quickly as we can get them, but we want the ones that are best suited for our district. Right now, we are sitting, I believe, at 43 officers. Now, we want to get to the point that we have one on every campus, but understand we want them to be able to cover the campus. Now, even in the elementaries, there are daily checks on the doors. There are people assigned, there is administrative staff assigned to check those doors twice daily to make sure they're closed. Because as you know, in the shooters, in the situations where it's been in the news, Uvalde, a door was left open. Okay. Can't afford that. Can't do that. So are we getting better? Yes. Do I think we are good? Yes. But we all have to practice good safety. And as we know, we have to keep doors closed. Sometimes parents don't necessarily understand that, but you do if you think about the safety of your children. So I hope that answers the question.
There's several campaigns going right now where you're hearing different solutions that have been brought up. You've got like the Guardian plan, the
Okay,
Marshall
you have the
plan.
Guardian plan, you have the Marshall plan, but you have a police department in place. You also have a police department that works in conjunction with all the other law enforcement agencies. Oscar, I personally and professionally do not feel comfortable with putting guns in teachers' hands. What would it be if that is not why teachers are there? Teachers are there to teach our children. They should not have to worry about carrying a gun. What happens if that gun gets left out of the safe? What happens if a teacher forgets on a very busy day? You don't want to put that responsibility on a teacher. Now, if you lived in a rural area and your response time was 30 minutes and over, you would need a Marshall program or a Guardian program. But right now, you don't want a SWAT officer to come in and make the mistake of shooting a teacher or shooting. You don't want a teacher to make the mistake of not getting the right person. You don't want to put that on them. I mean, that is my point of view.
There are a few candidates and a segment of the community that are putting a lot of attention around materials, books that are
Library
in,
books.
yes, that are in Humble ISD libraries that they feel are inappropriate or even
Let's
harmful in
clarify
some
that.
cases. Okay, I'd love to hear that.
You want to be careful with the First Amendment. I'm just going to say that. Okay. And secondly, Humble ISD has cleared up and made sure that every parent can close off their child to any level of book they don't want. All they have to do is go through Home Access Center, click that button, and by golly, my child won't be reading that material. Now, what you choose to read and what I choose to read may be two different things. We may look at it totally different, but now a parent has total control. They also have control through, I believe it's Home Access Center, but I can find out for sure. But they can also do the same thing with Houston Public Library. So, I mean, parents have control, which I think is the part that is important. That means parents are watching what their children are reading, and they have total control now. So, but one parent may say, well, I want my child to read this particular library book. Well, they should have that right too.
In board meetings, y'all have pointed out, and when I say y'all, I mean the district, have pointed out that you have a process. If there is something that's inappropriate, we hear a little bit of feedback out here on the outside about that process maybe being a little long, and the books are still sitting on the shelves while the process is going on. How do we feel, or how do you feel about the process right now? Is it good? Does it need to be improved? Is it good where it's at?
I think everything always can have adjustments. But I think right now personally and professionally, I think the librarians are following through. They're working through it. And the one thing I will always say, Oscar, is we get the information. Parents and citizens can communicate with us at any time. They can call us, they can email us, they can let us know. We will help with the process, but I do think our staff is doing their job. Now, if it seems too long and arduous, I know it was before, but since we've updated the policies and things, I do think that we are moving forward in a good manner.
In your opening, when I asked you to tell us why you're running, you mentioned your employee retention and your concerns around that, or your thoughts around that. And I know you're a retired teacher, retired AP, retired principal. You got a little bit of experience here.
Well, this is my concern. I will tell you that. Teacher retention concerns me because we have one of the best staffs around. We have 98% fill rate, which is excellent. I mean, there's not many districts around that can say that, but it always concerns me because I stay abreast of what's going on in the post-secondary, and our numbers in the schools of education are dropping. So that concerns me. So definitely we want to make sure that we are getting our teachers the support they need, because needless to say, things are different now. They're running up against issues they've never worked with. Part of it is our little ones that are coming in and the older ones that are coming in with mental health issues. So we've got to make sure they've got the support that they need. They also, the other thing is, I know some parents don't necessarily like the new calendar, but that calendar is good for our teachers. I will say that, because it gives them time to refresh. It gives them time that they can bounce back. And just like for the kids, I mean, the thing about everybody needs to understand that with the calendar, we go the same identical amount of time. We didn't cut time. It's just spread out.
You mentioned a couple of times making sure that the teachers get the support that they need. I just want to clarify, what do you mean by that? I mean, what is the support that they need?
You want to make sure they get the professional development they need in their subject areas. Okay. You also want to make sure that, given the opportunities, that we have the support that comes in to help them. So, I mean, depending on what kinds of things they're running up against, we've got to make sure that we have that support in place. It might be a behavioralist. It might be making sure that we have speech therapists. It might be that we have the appropriate interventionists to come into the classrooms to help support those students that need extra support. So those are the types of things we've got to make sure they have. And their curriculum materials. And, I know curriculum is an issue sometimes, but the bottom line is the state of Texas gives us our curriculum. That's where we get it.
Let me go to one last topic here, and this one's important to me. You probably know that the relationship between our school board and the public, and maybe our school board and the staffers that are out there. We hear all kinds of things, as you do as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you feel that relationship is right now between the board and the public. We hear things about people upset about limited public comment time, or feeling that it's a little bit us versus them. I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts on all this.
Well, here are my thoughts on that, and I'm glad you asked that question. Okay, number one, I want everybody to understand that the public comment is up to the time spent is up to the president of the board. He or she has that right to change it. And as you know, some people feel that we need more time for public comment. Depends on the person. Okay. Professionally speaking, I hate to cut a parent off. I do, but I also understand that we want to be respectful for everybody in the room, because we've got staff in there that have worked all day long. So, I mean, understand that I feel like that, okay, if I were president, I would probably change it a little bit, but I think that's at the discretion. We work as a board, we want to act as a board, so we back our president. Okay. So I mean, those things are going to change. It's very flexible, it's very fluid. And so I think as time goes on, you're going to see, okay, the public will get more time, because I think what we have learned from the present position, that we probably do need to give a little more time for our public, because we want our public to be able to tell us what they need to tell us. And I hope that answers the question.
Outside of that public comment time, just generally speaking, the relationship between the board and the public, I mean, how do you feel it is right now? Do you feel like y'all are relatively responsive,
I
open?
personally think we are responsive, and understand we normally the president of the board usually responds to make sure that we are responding as a board. Okay. But most of us will respond in that sense. We will say, okay, our president probably will also respond to you. We will connect you with the people that you need to be connected with. I know in my case, I always put certain people on the CCs, because I want that parent to get the response she needs or he needs. So I think we try to respond, and in some respects now, generally speaking, I think the public does associate well with us. I know we don't make everybody happy, but in generally speaking, I think we have a good relationship. Do we need to continue to work on that relationship? Yes. I do think, and I do feel, Oscar, that I do think there is a point at which maybe we need to have some workshops on what the board actually does and how it actually functions for our community. I do think that is something that we need to move forward to and have.
I like that idea. I'll be honest. I'm for sure ready to work with you all on that side. Absolutely.
Well, and I agree with you, Oscar, because the more, and that's like, okay, I've gotten 8 years in now, and you see where some of the weaknesses are. And I think that would help our bond with our community if they actually understood what our role in the district is, because we govern. We don't manage, we govern. And I think a workshop would be very helpful for anyone who's interested. And I think that, and we could do, as we're sitting here with Zoom, we could do one and it would be there on the website and people could refer to it easily.
I've asked a lot of questions about some topics that I heard from the community were important to them. But were there any topics that maybe I didn't ask about that you want to make sure you address before we wrap
Well,
up?
you address the guns. The only thing I would address, and I would remind all our parents and all our community members, if vouchers come into play in this legislative session, that will cause us some real budget issues. Not that I don't think everybody deserves to go wherever they want to, but needless to say, public education runs on public funds. So I would say to people, understand that if vouchers come into play and someone decides to take those funds to a private school, they don't come back to the state. In case they want to come back to public education, we educate that child, but there will be no funding for that child because that funding will stay at that private school. So be aware and make sure that you read the bills and that you understand what this voucher is. So, but that would be the only thing I want to remind people of. Let's know what's going on at the state level, especially in the line of finance.
You know that I appreciate anybody that either serves on the school board or runs for school board. I mean, you spend all this time, all this effort, all these resources to essentially become a volunteer. That's the end goal.
That's
So
true.
And so you obviously are running for re-election. You've got a few people running against you, and I appreciate anybody that's willing to do that. So looking at your position and the candidates that are running with you for that position, explain to the community why vote for Nancy Morrison versus the rest of that slate.
Well, I would tell the community to vote for me because I do have a true understanding of education. I've been on both sides now. So I know, when you're working with one building, that's one thing, but then you look at the overall district, and I do have a love for all children, and understand all our positions are at large. We are here for every child in this district. And I am the person who has a true love, have worked all over this district, know and understand, and have watched how this district has grown and how our needs have changed. And I have a true love and understanding of that. And that's why I would say vote re-elect Nancy Morrison, position 7. I promise you I will work as hard as I can for the kids of our district.
All right. So let's say somebody watches this or they listen to the podcast and they think, I want to support her. I want to find out more about her. I want to reach out to her. Where do they do that?
Okay, they can call me at 281-744-4155, or they can get me at Nancy Morrison 49 at gmail.com, or they can Facebook me at Nancy Morrison / Nancy for Humble, and that's a 4. Okay. And then they can go nancymorrison.wordpress.com for my webpage.
Thank you so much for, again, taking the time to chat with me, telling us a little bit about you and your campaign. I appreciate how generous you were with your time. Thank you again. I hope best of luck
Thank you,
with your
Oscar.
race.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.